Okay, everyone, here we are, getting ready to hunker down something much more complicated, wouldn't you say there, Logan?
Yep.
And we've got Miss Angela sitting back here on the backside. I tried to give her a mic, but she tried to beat me with it, so she doesn't have a mic at the moment. But I did drag her away from her computer in the other room. See, we're getting into coding, and I don't think she's that excited about it. But, hey, I can kind of understand. But we need to make our gun fire. And she was watching some of the stuff we've been doing earlier, and she was in the background going, ooh, that's pretty cool. And I think, in my opinion, when you make a gun and you make it fire, that's probably the coolest part of the entire process. What do you think, Logan?
Right, it's bringing it all together. We've done animations in Max. We've pulled them over. We set some default properties so we can see our gun. Now it'd be nice to see it do something.
Exactly. Kind of like Frankenstein right now, if you think about it. We've been Frankensteining all this stuff together for all this time, and basically when we get done with this, it's like pulling the giant lever and seeing it come to life. Wouldn't you agree?
Right.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to be working inside our viper.uc file, and we're just going to do all the coding straight out, and when we're done, we'll come back over here and we'll run our little UMake utility and go into Unreal, and if everything goes well, we'll be able to shoot a gun. Now, when I open this up, please don't have a heart attack. I have changed my font size because it's time for me to start programming now, and Logan will tell you I'm kind of freaky when it comes to programming.
Yeah, I am too if I'm actually typing stuff.
Yeah, if the font's not something that I like, I don't do well. I get all unhappy for some reason, and I just can't think when I'm unhappy. So I've changed the font to something that makes me happier. This is the same thing that we've done all the way up to this point, it's just with a different font. Here's all the information that was generated by the 3dstunr utility earlier. There's the default properties, and in the last section, you remember we divided it up into collision, display, inventory, and weapon, which weapon has nothing under it, though we're about to get carried away and add all sorts of stuff up under there. And so this is it. We're ready to go. I do want to go and point a couple things out, though. Number one, okay, this is tricky stuff here. Weapons can get deep, wouldn't you say there, Logan?
Yes.
Very deep, right?
Yes.
And we don't want to go that deep, do we?
Right, we're kind of giving an overview of how UScript works when making a weapon.
Right. And I feel right now, since I don't have a VTM out that is an introduction to Unreal Script, that if we started to get really deep with things, that we would really lose focus on what the objective of this entire CD is, which is just to give you a basic understanding of how to build a weapon.
Right.
Okay, so with that being said, the other thing I want to say is even though we are keeping the code relatively short, I am going to type it all out. Okay?
Right.
And Logan and I both talked about this, and of course we could copy and paste. And speaking of copying and pasting, you know, if you're a complete beginner and you really don't have a clue of where to start hacking things up to try to make your own weapons or other things function inside of Unreal Tournament, you know, all you need to do is open up Unreal Ed and go into another gun or into something else and double-click it and go into the code and check the code out that's inside all of the class declaration itself. In our case, our gun is closely modeled after the
Flat cannon.
You got it. And we could have simply opened up, grabbed the flat cannon code, and pasted it right here, and then start hacking that all up. And we talked about it. I just didn't think that was really going to serve us with what we were looking to accomplish here. That's why I want to type all of this out. And that's too bad for me, but as long as you guys can bear with me, that'll be fine. Now, while I'm typing, one of the things I got to say is I'm not going to talk a whole lot because when I talk a whole lot and type at the same time, Logan, what happens?
The code gets typed wrong.
The code gets typed wrong, yeah. I start typing spelling mistakes like crazy, and I can't even see them because I'm too busy blah, 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 blah talking. So during times like that, I'll let Logan explain a lot of this stuff while I'm actually coding. But don't worry, I will be talking as well about stuff. And the final thing is there is some vector mathematics going on inside of our fire function. And we're not going to get real heavy into this type of mathematics. Perhaps in a later VTM we will take some time and we'll get kind of deep when we start talking about vectors and rotators and things like that. Does that sound good with you, Logan?
Yeah.
Okay, so to get started with this entire process, we've got three things that's going to be going on. The first thing is going to be we're going to add some default properties to our weapon. Okay? After we've added some default properties to our weapon, the next thing is we've got a function that's going to be added into this class, and we also have a state that's going to be added into this class. And states and functions, they have one major area that makes them different. A function is kind of like something you can call on, and it's a series of tasks. I talked about this earlier when we were in the MaxScript section of writing your own little exporter. And you can call on a function and say, I need you to do something. And in this case, we're going to write a default function that's called fire. Okay?
Right.
And fire, it's a name that we have to use, and it gets called when the user actually hits the fire button. Okay, I'm going to look over at Angie. So far, everything looking good, making sense? Okay, she's shaking her head yes, so we're in good shape. So our function is going to be fire, and the state allows us to basically put objects into a particular state so that we can use latent commands, so that we can kind of we can wait till certain things happen, or we can make things delayed over a given period of gameplay time. Does that sound good with you, Logan?
Yeah.
So, and in this case, we're going to be using state. It's going to be really important for us to make sure that our animation gets to play all the way through. We don't want to interrupt it. That would be really bad. And also we're going to use it to make sure that the user is not holding the fire button down and that he still has ammo to continue firing. Okay? So with that being said, let's start out down here with our default properties. You remember earlier, these are just the properties that are automatically set when our object is spawned into the world. Okay? So what we need to do first is, of course, our weapon's going to need some ammo. So we're going to go ahead and set up some ammo things. So I'll go ahead and come in here, and the first two that I'm going to add in is going to be ammo name and my pickup ammo count. And while I'm typing this, Logan, if you'd like to go ahead and explain a little.
All right, we're actually giving this thing an ammo name, so because we're going to need to check on how much ammo the player has when we're firing. So it has to have ammo for us to be able to check that ammo.
Okay, and right now when I come in here and I say ammo name equals, now I don't have to do this right here. Up above, we're going to use ammo name. Okay, now I don't have to do that, right? I mean, I could actually refer to class.botpack pammo. Now in this particular case, actually I think we've modified our code to where we're not going to use that directly, right?
No, it's we're going to be referring to it through ammo type.
Actually, through ammo type, it's going to be one of the first things that we're going to do when we get into the fire function itself. But I think in a second when I do the projectile, that'll be the best example for what I was just saying. Yeah, I don't want to make anything too confusing right there. So we've just set our ammo name. So basically, the ammo type that we're going to be using is from the package botpack, and it's the P ammo type. Okay. Now what I want to do is I'm going to do the pickup ammo count. So let's see if I can actually do this and talk and type at the same time. So pickup ammo count is going to allow us to set how much ammo the weapon has when you get it.
Right, how much ammo it has when it's laying on the ground.
Absolutely. So the next thing up under weapon that I want to do, I'm just going to kind of space these out a little bit just for, neatness and keeping things kind of organized together, is let's go ahead and worry ourselves a little bit with our projectile, the actual thing that we're going to shoot out of the gun. So I'll start this off with a projectile class.
So what is it that we're going to be that the gun's going to be shooting?
Exactly. Is it a
rocket?
A bullet? Exactly.
In this case, a sharp shard of metal.
And so for that, we're just going to say the class. We're going to pull this from Unreal 1.
That's actually if you look at it real close.
So we're going to use Master Chunk. What an interesting name. And we're going to use, Angie's laughing, so I guess I get a laugh too. And we're also going to do one more thing. We're going to set a default property called Fire Offset. And you're going to see how we're going to use the fire offset a little later to allow us to tweak exactly where the projectile is being spawned in the world to make sure it's being spawned in the correct spot.
All right.
Okay? So in this case, we've already gone through and we've worked out our numbers. So I'm going to put them in here. I'm going to say X is 10, Y is going to be equal to a -7, and Z is going to be equal to 0. Okay? Now, a couple more things we can add in here. Logan, if you want to tell them a little bit about this shaking action I'm going to add.
Okay, when a lot of weapons in the game, when you fire, it makes your view shake a little bit. This is just defining some default properties for what magnitude for that shake, how long for the shake to last, stuff like that.
Okay, so the shake time, how long it's going to last, is going to be 0.15, and shake vertical, so shake vert equals 8.5. Okay? So with this, that's all of the default properties that we're going to need for pulling off this this particular fire function, or actual fire operation, if you will. So now we're ready to go ahead and come up here and do the fire itself. For this, now remember, at the very beginning of all this code right here, we've got the class and all of the exec commands that are in there generated by the 3ds_tunr file. After that, I'm going to come and just put 2 / comments, as I explained in the last lesson, and then we're going to say fire, okay, or fire chunks. And I'm going to go ahead and create a function type. So function, it's called fire. This is the default name, of course, and it's going to take in an argument into value. It's a float type, and we're not going to be using value, so we're not going to get into that. Now I'm going to go ahead and do an open curly brace and skip down a few lines and do a close curly brace. And while I'm in here, I'm also going to go ahead and just do a whole bunch of comment lines, or just / if you will. And we're also going to go ahead and define the state as well. So I'll go ahead and say state, and our state's going to be called normal, fire, open, and close. Now, Logan, does normal fire have to be, does it have to be called normal fire?
No, because we are going to be referring that to ourselves in the code in just a minute.
Exactly. So at this point, the only thing that we really needed to make sure is that fire is what we use.
Right, because fire is actually what gets called on in other places in the code, namely when your character hits the fire button.
Okay, so I hope you guys don't mind the approach that I'm taking for laying this out. I'm just trying to go nice and slow to make sure that everything I do is relatively well understood. So far, Angie, doing pretty good? So this is the whole series. She said yes. This is the whole series of tasks that's going to get called upon when we hit the fire button. So the first thing that I want to do inside here is I'm going to define some local variables. By the way, if I wanted to define any global variables, I would have done it right above my functions, right up here. The the local variables, a variable, as I said in previous lessons on this VTM, a variable is nothing but a container that's going to hold some data. In this case, we're going to create several of these variables. Several of them are going to be of type vector, okay, which is going to hold 3 pieces of information. And then we're going to have another one that's going to be of type pawn, okay, which will be able to actually hold us, the person with the gun, or the person shooting the gun if it's not us, okay? So in this case, the way I'm going to refer to a lot of the code as we go through here is I'm just going to stipulate that it's us shooting the gun. So to do this, all I need to do is say local, and vector is going to be the data type, and start x, y, comma, z, and I'm going to use a terminator. Now, that's a semicolon. You notice that up above with all these exec lines and all that, I did not use terminators at the end. Well, I did at the very end of class, but then after we got out of that, I didn't. And also down here at the very bottom, I didn't use terminators. That's because these areas are treated completely different than inside all of our functions. Once we get inside of our functions and our states, now we're programming more like in the world of C++ or Java, okay? And so we're very much going to respect those rules. Let's see, anything else I want to say about that? Nope, except for all of you non-programmers out there, a terminator tells the compiler this is the end of this line. Go ahead and take care of it. Do it. So in other words, if I didn't want to, not to go on and on about this, but I could have actually taken this and broke it up over multiple lines for readability. But this right here is not bad. So let's go ahead and come in here and do one more local, and its type is going to be pawn, and the variable name will be p. So, Logan, when you fire a gun, probably the first thing that you need to check is going to be what?
Is where you're going to spawn, like, the projectile. Where you're going to, like, where it's going to...
What if you don't have any ammo?
Oh. Then get a little ahead of myself there. Yeah. It's first just going to make sure that the gun has ammo to use before it's allowed to fire.
Yeah, I would say. Wouldn't you think, Angie? The gun's got to have some bullets in it to fire, right? She said, "Oh yeah." So I think she's getting a little happier than when I first drug her in here. Just kidding, I didn't drag her in here. Okay, maybe I did. Okay, so to check this, what we're going to do is we're going to say if. And we're going to call on ammo type. Okay, and remember we have said what our ammo type is already. The type of ammo that we're dealing with, okay, is what? We're going to be dealing with the botpack.p ammo type. Mm-hmm. And Logan has found himself a new friend that is crawling on him. That is an interesting looking moth, I must say. But now with ammo type, what we're going to do is we're going to say use ammo, and we're going to tell it to use one projectile. In other words, we're going to shoot one thing, metal chunk in this case, out of our gun. what this will do, think of this like a function. Okay, it's a method that will go through, actually subtract. First, it's going to check to make sure that you've actually got ammo to deduct. Then it's going to deduct, one ammo, and it's going to subtract it on your screen, and it's going to handle all that stuff for you. But this is going to send back a true or a false. If it is able to actually take this one and subtract it from ammo that you have of this type, then it's going to send back a true. Yes, we were able to take a piece of ammo away so we can shoot it out. Otherwise, it's going to send back a false. If it sends back a true, then what we're going to do is everything that resides inside these two curly braces. If it's not true, then forget it.
We'll just skip over it.
Yeah, we'll just skip over it. In this case, we'll be done with the function, and that's it for firing. So let's say at this point that, we're checking to see if we have any ammo left. So the first thing that we're going to do, if we have ammo and we just fired, is going to be, I'm going to throw a little comment in here, some alert AI. We're going to do B pointing equals true. Logan, if you want to talk about that.
That's like, okay, if we've just fired and say we're like looking at a bot, this will alert the bot that we just shot at it. So it'll turn around and respond to us.
Okay. So now we've just caused ourselves some trouble. All right, next thing we're going to do is I want to go ahead and get the general location of my gun and exactly, let me say it like this. General location of where this projectile needs to be spawned into the world where it's going to be shot from. Does that sound good?
Right.
So, I'll go ahead and throw another comment in here. I'm going to start using some comments now, and I'll save this script out for those of you on the net that may want it. Just simply ask in the forums, and I'll put it up there for you. But you can type it out yourself. But the comment will be, get the general location of the gun. Okay? Let's see. In fact, let's just add a little bit more. As a base location for the projectile. And, Logan, if you want to talk about this while I'm adding it in.
Okay, so start's going to be that hold that base location that we were talking about. And owner.location, that's like the center of our character. And to that, we're adding calc draw offset. So we've got the middle of our character, but that's not that accurate for where we want to put a projectile.
Right.
Then we also feed a calc draw offset. What that's going to do is take several values into account. One being where you set the player's view offset. So it's going to take those numbers into account and try to line up roughly where the gun is.
Okay.
And it's also going to take into account stuff like the base eye height. So, like, what location vertically to set this.
Mm-hmm.
Also, our walk bob. As we're walking and our aim slightly moves up and down, it will actually factor that in as well.
Right. So it kind of gets complicated in a way, but just to really sum it up, and by the way, if you want to actually read through this function, because this is a function that returns information back, right?
Right.
And to actually read more about it, it's actually in the
weapon.
You got it, the weapon class. So all you need to do is find weapon. When you go back into Unreal Ed, double-click on it, and you can go in there and actually just do a search for calc draw offset. It's not that big, a little paragraph, and you can see exactly how it's doing that. So we're taking this, and like I said, we're just kind of looking at this as the base location of where the projectile is going to be spawned. This doesn't mean this is the exact location, right?
Right.
We're going to do a little manipulating to it here shortly just to kind of line it up a little bit better. Remember down here we had the good old fire offset that we can use for fine-tuning it a little bit. I'm sorry, Logan. Anything that you wanted to add there?
Nope, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So next, let's go ahead and we're just going to stick ourselves or the person that's firing this. We're going to stick them into P. So P equals. Remember above, P is a variable type of type pawn. Okay, or it's a variable of type pawn. So P equals pawn, and we're just going to take the owner. Okay. So now what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and we need to generate the direction that the projectile is going to be facing. So we're going to put this in adjusted aim. So let's just go ahead and throw another comment in here. And I'm going to say adjusted aim represents the direction the projectile needs to face. And there's several things that's going on here. So, Logan, if you want to talk about these while I just kind of talk about them.
Okay, it's some fairly advanced way of getting which way your player's looking, as well as adding additional offsets. Some of those being an aim error, like for bots' inaccuracy settings, and other stuff. It also helps like when for bots to lead. And it's basically just calling on the pawn owner and asking it to return which way it's looking, as well as these extra values.
Lots of typing. Okay. So anything in there? You see anything in there that looks bad? Or all looks good to you?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay. So coming down, next thing we want to do, so now we've got this stored in our adjusted aim, and we want to take what's in adjusted aim and we want to separate it out into an X, Y, and Z. So to do this, we'll just simply come in here and use get axis, or axes, and then say we're going to take adjusted aim, comma, X, comma, Y, comma, Z. And it's going to actually put that into X, Y, and Z for us. Okay? And don't have to, but I'm going to space these out only because I don't like the way it looks otherwise. Just me being picky. So the next thing you need to do is I'm going to go ahead and put my comments. I'm going to put some multi-line comments here, Logan. I'm actually deviating just a little bit from what we're doing. I think this is a little bit better. We're going to use a spawn function in a minute. Right. And the whole purpose of a spawn function is to actually create something, to spawn an object from a class, boom, right there in the world, right?
Right.
And there's two things in our fire sequence that we're interested in spawning. We're interested in spawning light, so you'll see that when we actually fire our gun, that we're going to be illuminated around our character, okay? And the character itself is going to get a little illumination. And we also, of course, are interested in
spawning the actual projectile.
You got it. We need to actually create that projectile. So we're going to use spawn to do this. But what I want to do is I want to show you all of the different settings inside of spawn. So I'm just going to make, this is a multi-line comment where 2 forward slashes is a single line comment. This, a forward slash asterisk, asterisk forward slash will allow me to do multiple lines of comments. Of course, that's completely ignored by Unreal Script or by the compiler. It's only of importance to us. So let's just go ahead and back up here. So the first argument we're going to send is spawn class. And this one is important to us. Basically, it's what we want to spawn. Okay. The next thing is going to be, it's optional. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this.
So right now he's just outlining. Okay, so spawn is a function. Right now he's outlining the arguments you can feed to spawn.
And now this guy is going to be optional. We're not going to use them. Optional means it's something that does not need to be sent. And actor, this is just defining what type of information that we need to be sending to spawn owner. Okay, the owner of what's being spawned in this case. Some more, another optional tag would be the name. And that's type, and it is going to be going into spawn tag. Another optional. And we're not worried about that one either. Now, we are getting these other two that I'm about to add are important. We need to take in a vector, and it's going to be our spawn location. And basically, it's a location that we spawn whatever it is at. Okay? And then we've got one more that we're going to take in, and it's also optional. Okay, but again, we're going to be using this, and that's going to be a rotator. And it's going to be spawn rotation. In other words, which way this thing's going to be facing.
Right.
Okay? So, just with those being said, now what I want to do is actually come down here and use it. Okay, so again, this is just comments. It's just notes showing you something. Now, and it's just an argument breakdown, if you will. So here we are. We're going to spawn some light. So to do this, I'm going to do a spawn class. Okay. Wait a minute.
No.
Hold on. No. It's spawn.
Right.
I looked down one step too far. So spawn, open. Now, the first thing is what we're going to do, or what we're going to, again, what we need to spawn. So it's going to be class, weapon light. Okay, so in other words, we've just used this one. Next one is going to be our spawn owner, and we're not going to be using that. So we'll just do comma for the next guy, another comma so that we skip him. And then for our tag, our spawn tag, we're just going to feed it nothing. And then for the next, we're going to use the location that we've generated basically for our the location of where our projectile is going to be done, and we're going to manipulate it a little bit by adding x times 20, comma, and then the direction it's facing. Well, this is light. It's not doesn't have a direction it's facing. So as I type this out,
not this type of light.
Yeah, if you want to, yeah, exactly. If you want to add a little bit to this while I type this out, go ahead.
All right, so there, he's just spawning, say, an X, so a little bit in front of the gun. It's the rough, so start being holding that base location of roughly where our gun is in 3D space. So spawn a light a little bit in front of it. Light, this type of light emits in all directions, so we don't need to set a rotation. So just set it to 0, 0, 0.
Right. Now, just to kind of recover from a second ago, I put all this good stuff up here. The reason I did is I'm showing you each of the things we're seeing. Now, this first thing is not optional, and we're telling it in here that what we're going to spawn is going to be basically an object that's of the class weapon light. So we're spawning weapon light. That's the first thing, what we want to spawn. So, comma. The next thing we've left blank. We didn't put anything between these two commas, and that is going to be the spawn owner. All right, so the next thing after that is going to be the spawn tag, and what we did is just two single quotes. In other words, we left that empty, comma, and after that, the location. So we used our start location plus whatever was in X that we pulled out from up here from the get axes of adjusted aim, and then also, and you know, you could say that X is going out in front of us.
Right.
You know, so it's a light that's being illuminated out in front from where the fire, if you were to actually put any muzzle flare on it, that's where the illumination would be coming from. And then finally, our rotator, in this case, as Logan just said, that's not something that's needed for this type of light. So, and you can see that up here, rotator, spawn rotation. So I'm not trying to confuse you, I'm just trying to show you how I'm laying this out kind of as a map to the argument layout inside of here. Okay? And so with that, we need to go ahead and make sure that we put a closing on there, or we will get ourselves in trouble. All right, so now let's go ahead and come down. Next line, next thing I want to do is, and I'll go ahead and comment this one right here, is going to be add the fire offset that we put in earlier from the weapons, default properties. So right now we're just fine-tuning start a little bit further. Up above here we actually filled start with the information that we explained here. Now we're going to take start again and we're going to adjust it a little bit more. So this is a fine-tuning process. So start's going to be equal to start, whatever start is at the moment, plus we're going to take that fire offset dot x and we're going to multiply that by x and we're going to add to it fire offset dot y multiplied by y and fire offset dot z, and again we're going to multiply that by z. So, want to add anything to this, or?
So this just allows you that last level of control if you want to go and fine-tune exactly where this projectile is going to be spawned from.
Exactly. So at this point, we're ready to actually spawn it, right?
Right.
All right. So let's do just that. So we're going to spawn again using the same thing. You know, not trying to bore you here, but using the same setup as above. Except here, remember where I came in and I said class weapon light right there? Down here at the bottom in our default properties area, if you remember up under weapons, we've got this projectile class. And look at this, class Unreal 1 dot, or it's an I, but Unreal 1 dot master chunk. So instead of typing in this class blah, 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 like we did up here above for the weapon light, now we could use this default property name right here that we actually filled. So if I wanted to simply come down here and copy projectile class, I could come up here and say, look, I'm wanting to spawn a projectile class. Good, Logan?
So yeah, you want to spawn projectile class. You're basically spawning whatever info that's holding.
Okay, comma. So now we're ready for the next. So our spawn owner, comma. We're leaving that one blank. Our tag, boom, boom. We're leaving that blank, comma. Now we need two things. We need one, location, right there. Two, rotation, which way is it facing, okay? And in this case, if you remember, we have fine-tuned start to match the location. So we'll say start. And if you remember up above, adjusted aim was going to represent the direction that the projectile needs to face. So, comma, and we'll go ahead and put adjusted aim. Okay? Look good to you?
Yep.
I'm happy with it. So this is going to create us a projectile in the right place, pointing in the right way. And at this point, we spawned it, and boom, it's going to take care of business on its own. But the only thing we have left is our gun needs to react. Right?
Right.
I mean, it needs to recoil back, and the player needs to shake a little. We need all this little action to happen. So let's just kind of jump down a couple of lines and put some comments here. Let's just say play our animations. And we got a couple that we can go about doing. The first thing is going to be, we'll just say, I'm adding comments again, shake the player's view. And I'll just say, I was going to say, shake the player's player, I'll say player's view based on all of our settings that we set up before below. Remember how we used the shake, magnitude, time, and vertical down here. We're actually going to use that information here. So let's go ahead and type this in. Logan, if you want to say anything about this as I do it.
So we're just saying the player pawn that's holding the gun, and we're going to have it shake view. That's a built-in function, and we're going to feed it those values we set from default properties.
Okay. So there we are. Shake view takes in 3 arguments, and we're sending it the shake time, shake magnitude, and shake vertical. Okay. So with that, next thing we need to do is let's go ahead and do the recoil. So, and this is not our animation recoil.
Right. This was a recoil animation that's built into your player's model. So that looks like the model's reacting to the gun firing.
Recoil animation. And for this, we'll just go ahead and say P. Remember, P represents us. Dot. Play. Recoil. 2. And now we need to, how about a sound?
Yeah.
Gun needs to make a sound when it fires, I would say.
Right.
So we probably need to go ahead and, again, I'm just going to come in here and say play sound. Just keep it real simple. And this one's going to be owner. And who's the owner?
Whoever's holding the gun.
Play sound. Fire sound. And we're really down to one thing, but it really breaks up into 2 categories. Now we need to actually play our gun's animation and then go into the state normal fire so that we can make sure that that animation actually completes, and then we'll have the system check to make sure you're not holding fire down and that you still have bullets left or projectiles left before we go back in, and if so, we'll go back into this again. So for this is where we play the gun's fire animation. This goes all the way back up here to our sequences that we created inside of 3ds Max long time ago, at least what feels like a long time ago. And we created the good old fire sequence, if you remember, between frames 50 and 60. So now to actually put that into motion, here we go. All it is play anim, so a call to a function call, and we're just going to send it fire. I'll make it all caps like above, just for the heck of it. Comma, the time, or the speed, if you will, 0.3. And then a tweening number. So as I type this, Logan, if you want to explain.
So this is just the control the smoothness.
Exactly. So if you don't see that your firing's moving fast enough, or if it's moving too fast, you can adjust the speed right here. And if it looks too choppy, you can adjust the tweening right here to smooth it out. Now we've got the animation playing. We need to go ahead and enter into a state to make sure that that gets completed. Okay? So to do that, all I need to do is say go to state. And the state, we've already set it up down here. At least we set the structure of it up. The state is called normal fire. And there you go. So now, inside of normal fire, so this takes us out of our fire function and drops down into a new state, or a state normal fire. And inside of normal fire, first thing that we're going to look for is a begin. So I'll go ahead and come in here and do a begin. And this is where we're going to enter into our actual state at.
Right, the begin label is, if you need some code to be run as soon as the state is entered, you'll want to put it under a begin label.
And in this case, we do. We want to run finish anim. And finish anim, basically, it's a latent function that's going to kind of pause things until the actual animation that's taking place has completed.
Right.
Okay. So now we're waiting until animation's done. Once it's done, we're going to do one more function. We're going to do finish. And what finish does is basically it checks a couple of things. First, it checks to see if the player still has the fire button down. And if the fire button is still being held down, then what it does is it makes sure that you still have ammo left. Very much similar to the way we checked up here to make sure that we had ammo before we were even able to fire. If it finds that the fire button is indeed held down and there is ammo left, what Finish will do is automatically trigger us to run fire again. So then we'll go through this entire process of subtracting another projectile and going through here and basically spawning our light, spawning our projectile, sending it on its way, playing the animation again, and then going back into a normal fire state again where we wait for the animation to complete, and then we check for those two conditions again. This will continue to happen until A, the player lets go of the fire button, or B, you simply run out of bullets. Once that happens, that's it. Okay, we're out of the state, and you fired. You're done. What do you think, Logan?
Right.
Now, have you seen any major typos in here?
No, I didn't see any.
It's not too bad. I mean, I've typed quite a bit of stuff.
Put a semicolon on the end of Finish there.
So yeah, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. So let's go ahead and come up here and save this now, and I'll go ahead and close it out. We'll come back over here, hit the up arrow, and here we go. So compiling, 0 errors, 0 warnings. So far, so good. Here comes Unreal Tournament. And let's go ahead, and there we are. Now, let's all hold our breath and see how well things work. So we picked up our small chance gun. We need to change that one of these days. There we are. If you notice in the bottom right-hand corner, let me get to where it's kind of dark, you'll see a 100 down there, indicating that our pickup ammo count default property worked just fine. And now it is time to fire. Hey, look at that. The gun is now actually, boom, recoiling back. You'll also notice there's a little bit of a jolt to our display, which is thanks to all that good shake stuff. And we are shooting out a master chunk. And you can see little sparks happening, like over here, shoot and hit something. If I can get something to generate, there we go. Some little sparks happening. But it's a little tough to see the projectile coming out. Well, there it is. You can see it pretty good from right there. Can you see it, Angie? Okay, so projectiles coming out, the animation is indeed playing. In other words, you see the weapon is going back, coming back forward. Also, let me move up here to a dark spot, looking in the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see that our projectile count has now dropped down to 78. So everything's being handled wonderfully for us, which is a good thing. And the only thing we may want to do, Logan, is in the next section, let's go ahead and show them how we can actually generate another .uc file. And let's take this master chunk. Actually, let's step down into chunk.
Right.
And we'll basically change the way. So we can't step down into chunk right now because chunk doesn't have a mesh to actually send out.
Right. Yeah. Chunk was just some defining how like a piece of metal should work in the Unreal world. Make it bounce,
the
make
bouncing
it spawn
and all.
sparks.
Exactly.
So we're going to build on that and make our own projectile from that later.
So yeah, I think that would be really cool to give them how to do that.
Right.
So we'll do that, and we'll actually change it from being a piece of geometry like this, a mesh. We'll change it over to a sprite type so that we can make a cool looking little green ball. What do you think?
Sounds good.
So with that, by the way, you can't hear the firing sound, though. Yes, it is firing. The sound is being fired as well. So if you're doing this at home, you should have good results. So with that out of the way, that concludes this section right here. So thanks very much, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it. Thanks. Bye. Okay, guys, we're not done out of this section quite yet. We've got just a tad bit more that we want to add, so bear with us. First of all, and it's just some clarifications that we're wanting to do. First of all, up under Viper, let's come back in here. While we said it was firing a sound, since we didn't have the speakers actually hooked up, we felt, or at least I felt very confident that it was. But no, we need to
be too confident.
Yeah, that's what happens when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and we're trying to hurry and get through without boring you guys to death by typing 15 million lines of code. So with that, what we want to do is come in here up under weapon, and we want to add another default property. So let's just, projectile fire offset. We'll just come down here and let's just move on over a little bit. And this one's going to be fire sound, okay, that we use above. We need to kind of put something in there. And we're going to say sound, and the sound we're going to use is Unreal I.Cannon shot.
So all those, you just typed this out, and I'm wondering why it's not working.
This is why. Okay, so looks good to me. So let's go ahead and save this. It'll end up getting compiled again because we're about to be putting more information in here. And And we've got one more thing that we want to talk about, and that was earlier. I caught Logan off guard by saying, and where can they find calc draw offset at if you want to read through it. And since we've been working inside Weapon so much, pulling stuff out, this one is actually one higher. It's in inventory.
All right, so want to bring up the script and show calc draw offset where it was, just as a visual aid.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're looking for.
So where we were...
So looking for start down here. Or, no, up higher. Yeah, start.
So calc draw offset, that is actually defined in inventory.
And you know what? Let's show it to him.
Okay.
I figure we can at least do that. So let's go ahead and close this out. So, I'm going to open up Unreal Ed.
Better visual aid.
Poor machine dying so much. Okay. And let's just go ahead and come up here and open up our actor class. And I'm just going to double click on inventory right there. And so here we are looking at the actual inventory class. And then I can just go ahead and click the find button and calc, draw, offset. And it's going to be like second find. So find next, and scroll down a little bit. And there you go. Simulated final function vector. The vector is what it sends back. Calc draw offset.
So yeah, this is what we were calling on when we needed to find stuff like the base eye height, as you can see there, and the walk bob, stuff like that.
So yeah, weapon bobbing. We're also, this is basically where, again, we're getting this actual offset that we need for figuring out where we're going to be placing this projectile, at least for the base position.
Right, basically figure out where the gun is so we can figure out where to put the projectile.
Okay, so this is just a little bit extra that we're throwing on the end. Anytime we accidentally skip over something or make a mistake or anything, we try not to leave those hanging, and we don't come in here and try to re-record and edit. We try to give you guys the way it is in the real world, and everybody makes mistakes. So there was one for me and one for Logan, so we're even. So with that, let's just go ahead and close out of all this good stuff. And now, for real this time, that concludes this section. We'll see you in a minute in the next lesson. Thanks.